So when you picture Saudi Arabia, what comes to mind? For most of us, it's probably two things, right? Endless sand dunes and just unbelievable oil wealth. But behind that shiny surface, there's this incredible paradox. A country that's literally swimming in oil, but is one of the poorest places on earth when it comes to the one thing we all need to live, water. So how on earth does a kingdom like that even survive, let alone thrive, when it's living on the edge of what seems impossible? Okay, first, let's just try to wrap our heads around the basic challenge here. We're talking about the biggest country in the world that doesn't have a single permanent natural river. Not one. I mean, 98% of the country is just scorching desert. Rain almost never happens. It's a place that's basically defined by a lack of water. And yet, what they're doing about it is, well, it's one of the most mind-blowing engineering projects ever. They're not just looking for water. They are building a river. A massive, colossal network of pipes that, when it's all done, is going to stretch for 12,000 kilometers. To put that in perspective, that is almost twice as long as the entire Nile River. So that brings us to the big question, the central mystery of this whole thing. If there are no rivers and it basically never rains, where is all this water coming from? Seriously, how is something that sounds this impossible even happening? All right, to really get the solution, we've got to first understand just how big the problem is. And believe me, this is a crisis that's been building for a long, long time. There's this great analogy that really hits it home. It says, it's like having a golden palace, but only 2 sips of water to drink. Think about that. All the money in the world, it just doesn't matter if you don't have water to live. For a while, Saudi Arabia had a sort of hidden stash, something called fossil water. Now, this isn't just regular groundwater. No, this is ancient stuff, trapped deep underground for millions of years. And here's the kicker. Once you use it, it's gone, forever. It's like a battery you can't recharge, a one-time gift from the planet. And this is where a huge, catastrophic mistake was made. Back in the 70s, the government had this idea. Let's be self-sufficient. Let's grow our own wheat in the desert. And you know what? It actually worked. But the cost was unbelievable. By 2003, farming was gulping down a staggering 85% of the country's water. All of it, that precious, irreplaceable fossil water. In just a few decades, they had literally drunk their ancient reserves dry. The government had no choice but to shut the whole thing down. And it wasn't just farming. You also had the problem of personal use. Get this, at its peak, the average person in Saudi Arabia was using over 300 liters of water a day. That's more than double the world average. So you have this already terrible situation just being made so much worse by sky-high demand. So with that fossil water battery almost completely drained, the kingdom had to make a huge pivot. They needed a totally new, really radical plan. One that was born out of both desperation and, well, a whole lot of ambition. And the answer they came up with? Basically, to make their own water. The plan was to build this incredible network of giant pipes, an artificial river, really, and build the entire thing underground. Why? To keep every single drop safe from that brutal desert sun and stop it from just evaporating away. The scale of this thing is it's hard to even picture. We're talking 12,000 kilometers. That completely dwarfs the Nile River. It's a system so big that if you laid all the pipes out end to end, they would almost wrap around the entire planet. That's just wild. And the numbers? They're almost impossible to comprehend. Every single day, this system is designed to pump and move an absolutely staggering amount of water. We're talking 9.4 billion, that's billion with a B, 9.4 billion liters of fresh, clean, drinkable water. That's enough to take care of a growing population, maybe even restart some of those farming plans and completely change the country's future. But it still begs the question, right? Where is all this water coming from? Well, the answer isn't under the sand anymore. It's on the coasts, in the sea. And it comes down to some pretty remarkable tech that can take salty, undrinkable ocean water and turn it into the lifeblood of a nation. Okay, so the first method is basically a supersized, incredibly efficient way of boiling water. Think about it like this. In these huge plants, they take seawater and pass it through a bunch of chambers. Each chamber has lower pressure than the one before it. This tricks the water into boiling over and over again, but at lower and lower temperatures. All that boiling creates pure steam, which they then capture, cool down, and condense back into fresh water. And all the salt? It just gets left behind. Then there's the second method, and this is the one that's really taking over. It's called reverse osmosis. And this is where things get really, really clever. The whole idea is actually inspired by biology, by how our own body cells handle water. The process uses a ton of pressure to literally squeeze seawater through this special, super fine membrane. And when I say fine, I mean it. The little holes in this membrane are, and I'm quoting here, so small that not even a virus can pass through. So the tiny water molecules can get through just fine with salt, minerals, you name it, all that stuff gets blocked. What you're left with is water that's almost perfectly pure. And the amazing part is it's actually pretty energy efficient. But you can't just create this much fresh water out of thin air, or, well, out of the ocean, without some kind of consequence. Every big solution seems to create a new problem. And the problem here, well, it's a big one. See, for every billion liters of fresh water they make, the process also creates a huge amount of waste. I'm talking about 329,000 tons of super salty, concentrated gunk called brine. And that's not per year, that's every single day. Just to help you visualize that, 329,000 tons. That's about the same weight as over 1,600 blue whales. And every day, that much of this toxic, hot, salty brine gets dumped right back into the sea. Now, as you can imagine, this creates a massive environmental problem. This super salty brine is heavier than normal seawater, so it sinks and creates these underwater dead zones where basically nothing can live. It kills coral reefs, it kills marine life. So to fight this, they're working on some pretty cool solutions. One is to use these deep sea diffusers to just spread the brine out more. But another really interesting idea is something called brine mining, where they actually treat the waste like a resource and pull out valuable stuff like magnesium and potassium. Pretty cool, right? Turning a problem into a product. So, as we start to wrap this up, you have to step back and ask the big question. What does a project this huge really mean? Not just for Saudi Arabia, but for the rest of the world too. Well, let me throw one more crazy fact at you. The energy cost. Just the pumps, the machines needed to push all that water uphill to the cities and farms, they use up 9% of the entire country's electricity. 9%. That's a massive, massive energy footprint for a massive project. And that really leaves us with this huge final question. Is this incredible artificial river a shining example of human ingenuity? Is it a sustainable model that other countries with no water can look to? Or is it a cautionary tale? A story of human arrogance, a super expensive energy-guzzling project that's basically just a declaration of war against nature? The answer to that, much like the river itself, is probably still being built.